So hey, Wrocław. Wrocław?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. It's been a pleasure, and I'm really flattered to be here in front of you, especially at the React Native conference. I think it's the only one. It's like there is no other React Native dedicated conference. So yeah, I'm here to talk about cross-platform development. So I'm really kind of nervous that there's a camera. So a lot of eyes are watching me now, but also my parents will be watching. So salut mama, salut tată, vă iubesc, I love you. Also my daughter. So yeah, without further ado, I'll just jump directly. So as Mike said, my name is Catalin Miron. I'm shitposting on Twitter, so you can follow me or unfollow me. I'm also sharing my code on GitHub by using Catalin Miron handler. I have a couple of React Native apps and implementations there. I'm also lately doing YouTube videos, mainly about React Native and animations in general. I love those. I was a UI developer, yeah, in the past, so I kind of love the UI and UX and love to move things around. So check it out. Otherwise, you can find more details about me, my work on Batman codes. So I'm the guy with the hat. I'm currently working at Skype in the messaging team. Skype is now part of Microsoft, if you didn't knew that. We are based in Prague, so I'll talk like a little about my journey, how I end up being in the Skype team, because I think that most of you, or at least a couple of you, will share the same journey with me. So I was doing React for a long time now, I think maybe 5 years or so. I also had access to React Native in the private mode, and I was kept in that bubble since the beginning. And I was a React developer by day and a React Native developer by night. But after my daughter was born, I couldn't afford that time anymore. So I had to move on and to look out for a company that is doing cross-platform development, because I was so in love with React and React Native, both combined. So I found out that Skype is doing it, and here I am after 1.5 years talking about how we actually implemented a cross-platform solution that's actually working on all platforms, including Windows, Linux, and web plus mobile, of course. I'll start with just a little disclaimer before we will get into shape, and I'll just lose every, I'm kind of nervous still, but yeah, either way. So the disclaimer here is that I really love Expo. They are doing an awesome job in this community. They are pushing super hard on it. I know about Expo Web. I know about React Native Web. I actually know Charlie. I also know Brent. I also know Ivan. And I think that I know all Expo team. They send me this letter saying that I'm doing awesome things. I don't know why. And all my videos on YouTube are based on Expo. Even my wife, she's wearing an Expo hoodie. So, yeah, I know. Cool, so now that we are in this Zen mode and everything is okay, so you're not going to throw with things on me and there is no hate between us. I'll start by saying some words about cross-platform development using ReactXP and why I see it, how it actually increased the developer experience that most of us are looking for, and the confidence and the happiness on the same time. ReactXP is an open source project. You can find it on GitHub. By going to github.com/Microsoft/ReactXP. Just check it out. What's ReactXP? It's a library for building cross-platform applications that sits on top of React and React Native. It's baked by Microsoft and built by Skype. It was actually built because of the transition from the old Skype client to the new one, where the team that created it wanted to give the developer experience, to increase the developer experience. So if you felt confident in debugging or writing UI for iOS, you could do that. You didn't have to go to web, for example, but you'll be confident that your application will look the same cross-platform no matter what. So that was the Skype headline for building ReactXP in the first place. And as I said, it's built on top of React and React Native. So it's kind of the proxy layer between those awesome libraries. So kudos for Facebook team. I see Ellie here, so yeah, let's give it a shot. Yeah. Thanks for building React, and React Native is really awesome, especially the whole developer experience around it. And what XP actually means is not coming from Windows XP, even though it's XP. It's coming from React for X platforms, or in other words, is React for all platforms. Why ReactXP? It's because it's built entirely in TypeScript, so you'll get the benefits of type checking, auto-completion, IntelliSense, error handling, and it's a nice experience. And you'll be happy and confident building in TypeScript in general. And I think that Torta will give more details why to use TypeScript as well. It's open source, as I said, and it has a vibrant and active community around it. As a matter of fact, bumping React Native version to 0.59 was coming from outside of Microsoft and Skype. And thank you so much for the devs that made it possible for bumping React Native. It was a pain, and the PR was huge. So yeah, kudos to them. ReactXP, as I said, it's React for all platforms, so all platforms are there. iOS, it's built with React Native, Android with React Native as well. There is Windows 10, which is built using React Native Windows, which is a wrapper for UWP, which is Universal Windows Platform. Web, it's using React, and for other platforms, as I'll show you in the upcoming slides, you can build it using Electron for Windows 7, Windows 8, Linux, macOS, and so on. So wrapping your web application with Electron, it's going to work. Of course, you need to handle some APIs mapping from Electron, like notifications and so on, but everything is going to work. And a spoiler alert, there is a React Native macOS. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but there, if you have ever followed the React Native fork from Microsoft, there is something going on there. Yeah, so ReactXP offers only 11 components. Why only? Because we, Skype developers, like inside Skype, believe that those components are the required or the primitive building blocks in order to build on top of each other and build a huge application. And by the way, at Skype, we actually use only this because we're using ReactXP, the open source version. So if you head to Skype and install it, everything is built using those 11 components, like a view, text box, text input, and so on. There are also 16 different APIs exposed, such as accessibility, the platform, as Paris was mentioning, like it's giving you the iOS on what platform does your code run. But in addition to that, we also have Windows as platform, plus web. And also user presence, for example, or user interface for calculating or measuring, for measurements of the window, and so on. And there are 7 built-in extensions in ReactXP. The code, it's living in ReactXP repository. To mention, out of those, there is a navigator. It's kind of outdated. We don't recommend to use it. but it's working cross-platform. It's based on navigation experimental navigation. It's kind of outdated, I know. There is also a video component that is going to run cross-platform. Extensions are usually, I'm a huge fan of StarCraft, so extension is it's a rude term because StarCraft broader extension. I always think about StarCraft when I'm talking about extensions, but either way, is the unification for all platforms. And I'll dive deeper in the upcoming slides into this topic, which I think it's the most important part of ReactXP as a whole. So, yeah. Okay, getting started with it. There are two different ways to get started with. It's either cloning ReactXP repo and go to samples. There are 5 different examples prepared there, from a beginner app to a scalable application bootstrapped for you. Or there is a CreatorX app, CLI, that offers you the same capability as Create React App or Create React Native App gives you, and is going to create a boilerplate for cross-platform development. The code looks familiar to you because you are at the React Native conference. We actually borrowed everything from React Native, so we don't use divs, spans, ps, and so on. We just use views, text. Of course, it's prefixed with Rx, but you don't have to use it, so you can use this structuring. And in this example, I'm also using animated. We expose an API, a tiny API, a thin layer between running animations on React Native, but as well on web by using animated API. So if you're familiar with animated API from React Native, it's really easy to dig into ReactXP animations. And by this example, I'll play the video. This is how it's going to perform on web and iOS, but it's going to be the same on Windows and Android as well. So let me play it again. It's not working? Oh, it's here. Cool. Styling. The styling has some benefits here. We are using a different method for caching styles. So all the styles by default in ReactXP are cached. And for example, for a view style, we use the method createViewStyle, which will offer you the auto-completion and error handling because it's using TypeScript and everything gets typed there. Also for the text as well. But in case you want to avoid caching those styles because you will have a dynamic style based on a prop or on a state, you can send the second argument of that method to be false, so the styles are not going to be cached or reused. As a takeaway from the styles, those are cached by default. It's using Flexbox layout with a couple of differences. The flex direction is column by default, and other tiny differences. The measurements are in pixels only. That's because using grams or percentages based on a platform is going to be difficult to manage. So we are going to stick only with pixels for now. And 99.9% the styles are going to look the same cross-platform. So if you are going to run it on web, you'll have almost 100% confident. You'll be 100% confident that they are looking the same on iOS or Android. If they are not looking the same, please raise an issue or feel free to create a PR. We'll be more than happy to receive one. Running it. By using the CLI that I was mentioning previously, it exposed 4 different scripts. Start iOS, start Android, start Windows. There's a typo there. I'm not using TypeScript for that. And start web. Those, for example, start iOS and start Android, they are going to open the simulator or emulator. Start Windows is going to bump the Windows shell, and start web is going to open a local host on your browser. Building has the same scripts. Instead of start, we are using build. Accessibility. When I first joined Skype, I didn't know about accessibility at all, and because Microsoft it's kind of trying to empower all the users. Accessibility it's a must in all applications. So ReactXP offers a bunch of accessibility methods and components, and all 11 components are accessible by default cross-platform. It has a common implementation, so you'll have tab index, for example, cross-platform. You also have accessibility traits, accessibility label, and so on, which are working cross-platform. And there is an API interface. For example, this interface, if you, in our case in messaging, when you receive a message, you uninform the user, and we expose announce for accessibility, which is a method that is going to trigger the voiceover and is going to announce whatever text you've added as an input. Okay, so how actually we are using ReactXP in Skype? We have this diagram here, and we have the application code, which is the reusable code, like business logic, methods, which are working by default cross-platform. The only thing that you need to have is the layer that it's able to run cross-platform. Then we have ReactXP abstraction, along with components, views, and extensions. And down the tree, it's React and React Native. To dig deeper is, for Android and iOS, we are using ReactXP. So ReactXP is the middle column here. Android and iOS, it's using ReactXP, which goes to React Native. Web, it's using React.js. Windows, Mac, and Linux, it's going to use an Electron wrapper. And Windows, it's also going to build using React Native Windows as well. And for Mac, no disclaimer, so the guys will talk more about it. So we have a huge folder for common code. So I think that 85% of the code is reused cross-platform. And we have the view definitions, the animations, the event handling, the REST clients. But then there is this platform-specific code. So I'll give you an example about notifications. We have notifications for iOS, Android, Windows, Electron, and Web, which have different integration and different business logic. But we tend to extend it and just output a unified API, which I'll be talking now. So platform specifics are actually the extensions. The extensions are, it's an implementation specific for each platform. And you can name those at index.platform.js, which is the entry point that has to survive in the root folder where you will define the extension. Web, iOS, and Android are required, and index.web.ts or JS, it's the default, so you can use only index.js file. Baking an extension, because I think that this is the main point of ReactXP being powerful inside Skype, and other companies are also using it. So we are going to bake our own extension and show you how easy it is to create so-called cross-platform library to actually work cross-platform. And in my case, I'd like to thank Formidable Labs. I'll be using victory charts in this example. So thanks, Formidable, for helping me putting these slides together. In the first place, you already have the boilerplate using create Eric's app. The only thing that you need to create is a modules folder, and inside that modules, name your module as victory or whatever module would you like to create. Inside it, as I said, you need to define the index, the entry points for your platforms. So in my case, it's going to be index.native because I'm going to share the same code between Android and iOS. There is going to be an index.tsx, and there's also going to be a definition type for Victory native. So the only thing that I need to do is victory-native.d.ts, and we'll dig deeper in those files right now. So first install Victory, Victory native, and types Victory. Inside your index.ts, which is the web version, import Victory and export Victory from Victory. In index.native, import Victory from Victory native and export Victory. So pretty easy, right? And in your types is like declare the Victory native module, but bind it to Victory types. And because Formidable Labs did an awesome job sharing the same API, everything is going to work out of the box. So in order to use it in your project, in tsconfig, in order to avoid .. or jumping between folders, you can define the path as modules and asterisks to get all the modules from that folder. And so importing in your code is going to be import Victory from module/Victory, which is really nice. You can also do fancy tricks like @ in front of modules. I saw a lot of people doing it. So this is how you are going to import in an example or in your file, import Victory from modules Victory. And in this example, I'm going to render a Victory chart bar. And this is how it's actually looking. So the sample data is just a JSON, is just an object with a collection of points. And then I'm just wrapping the bar chart into a Victory chart. For more details, I think they have a great documentation. So I'm not going to explain what the code does, but I'll just show you how how it's looking in web and mobile. So on the left-hand side, we have the web version, and you have the bar chart there. And on the native, it's looking the same. The only thing that I need to do is import those and use ReactXP for building for those platforms, and that's it. Because Victory, it's exposing a lot of components and helpers. We can build a huge dashboard and charts and analytics in general, like if you have an analytics dashboard. And it's also having a pie, a line, an area. And for animations, it's using D3 interpolation. So combining those is going to result in this kind of analytics chart, I would say. And as you can see, you have also animations because it's using D3. So it's updating the state wherever it's updating the path whenever the number has changed based on the state. So those are looking the same cross-platform. And +1 for extensions. Now we know how to write an extension, and it's called Victory Charts. And before that was more or less the whole talk about. So this community is awesome, and wherever something new or old is presented, we shouldn't hate it, and we should embrace it as it's our own tool. And we failed quite big in the past at Skype, and we're still failing, but without failures, you cannot succeed. So feel free to come afterwards, chat with me, and I'll be more than happy to give you more details about the whole ReactXP. And yeah, it was a pleasure to be here in front of you. So thank you very much.